Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the other big story that we're focusing on, and that's related to the India-UK FTA. Well, in a landmark moment for both nations, Prime Minister Narendra Modi last night announced a successful India-UK free trade agreement. In a conversation with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Prime Minister Modi highlighted the deal's significance, not just economically, but also socially, with the inclusion of a double contribution convention. So that was signed as well, aside from the India-UK FTA. Now, this essentially is a social security pact that strengthens ties between the two countries. Modi emphasized that this historic agreement will elevate the comprehensive strategic partnership, driving trade, investment, job creation and innovation across both economies. And to help us understand what does the India-UK FTA mean specifically for the IT sector, I'm now joined by Sunil Subramaniam, who's a market expert. Thank you very much, Mr. Subramaniam, for joining us here on ET Now.
Hi, good evening.
Mr. Subramaniam, if you look at the fine print of the India-UK FTA, there are several aspects that are related to the easing of visa rules. There's mobility aspect as well, shared partnership when it comes to the startup sector. But how do you really see the overall impact in terms of the synergies that can be drawn with respect to the IT sector, both in India and the United Kingdom?
So I think you mentioned the double contribution convention agreement, which along with the BTA has been signed. And that's a huge cost saving, because under the older thing, the social security, even for an IT employee, was going to be temporarily based. For 3 years, they will have to pay the social security recovery to the UK government. That's as much as 20% of the salaries, right? So which was a big hit, both for the employees, but I think also for the employers, because in a way, the employers would have to compensate them for that loss. Now, there are about 50 to 60,000 IT employees who are already engaged there. But this number could arguably be double or even triple if not for the fact that UK was a less preferred destination for them to do nearshoring. Let's say you're supplying Europe, right? And you want to base them in London. But you got to, because of this clause, your costs are going to be 20% higher. So I think to that extent, two things. One is, of course, this 20% saving will partly be going to the employees and partly to the IT companies. But more importantly, more work could now be nearshored out of London. And London, as you know, is a financial center, and it's got a huge amount of housing and other support systems for basing people. Before Brexit, London was, in fact, the nerve center for Europe. But after Brexit, it slowly started losing. So now this could lead to a lot of Indian software companies using London or England broadly as their base to serve customers over the entire European Union. So I think it's a huge boost for the IT sector. The savings in the salary cost, as you know, for IT companies, salary is the biggest part of the cost structure of the company. So I think it's a huge positive coming out from the IT. So not only do I see a potential doubling or tripling of IT employees being now based out of England, but also it comes at a significant cost saving to the IT companies.
Right, but let's expand a bit more on the opportunities that this agreement carries for IT companies. How do you think IT firms can capitalize on new opportunities in the UK market due to this FTA? Of course, that convention, the double convention aspect you've mentioned, but what are the other areas, significant areas that companies can look at with respect to the UK market?
So I think that if you look at it, this is not necessarily only restricted to the UK market, as I was trying to explain, right? This is about companies basing their employees in the UK. So yes, the UK market has a huge potential for IT software and other services, and AI and other services, which Indian ITs are increasingly providing consulting. But I see that London will become a base for them to serve Europe. So to that extent, I think the potential is huge. India would obviously try to, trying a BTA with the European Union, try to include a similar clause there. But even if they don't succeed there, I think this is a huge benefit, right? That's one thing. The second is, I think the IT, basically healthcare. The National Healthcare Service is a huge necessity for IT services, right, and it's a huge potential business for Indian IT companies in the United Kingdom itself.
Right, Mr. Subramaniam, now when you speak about the larger opportunity in serving not just the UK, but the whole of European Union with respect to these IT services, how big do you think that opportunity is?
So I think that if you look at various companies, right, I see as much as 30 to 40% of the revenues coming from the European Union. And today that could be served by a mix of nearshoring and offshoring from India to that effect, right? Now, a lot more of that business would move into the nearshoring, which is basing yourself there and then doing. So in that context, it saves a huge amount of money. So if you take the whole IT pack, my estimate is that for certain companies, it's as high as 30 to 40%. But if you probably take the overall pool, it's closer to 20% of their business comes from the Europe. And so a savings of that amount from that is huge. UK will benefit because a lot of these employees are now going to be based there. So clearly, it's a win-win kind of a situation.
Right. Sir, I also want to ask you about, with UK actually having stringent data protection and privacy rules like the GDPR, how will the FTA impact the way IT companies actually handle data transfer and storage between the two countries?
So there again, you pointed out a very good thing, right? Because earlier there was some amount being offshored, the whole question of data privacy and security was an issue. If now the employees are going to be based in the UK, a lot of these worries go away because then you will be in the security system, your hardware and everything to serve would be in the UK itself. So I think that's a good thing that you pointed out. There's a huge benefit given the stringent laws that UK has.
Right. One final question, Mr. Subramaniam, before we let you go. Now that given that India is also in talks with other countries about FTAs, how does the India-UK FTA compare with other trade agreements in terms of, what sort of, precedent does it really lay for some of those agreements to be negotiated, specifically from an IT and tech sector perspective?
So I would argue here that as far as the BTA with England is concerned, right, I think what comes out very clearly is that India is willing to give up stuff on the high-end products, but is focusing on labor-oriented sectors, which is where they want to get their pound of flesh, if I may say. So apart from the IT, if you see where are the wins for India, it's from the textiles, from the leather. They're labor-oriented. So IT being one of the huge labor-oriented sectors, this sets the path for the BTA with the European Union as well as with the United States. You can clearly see the government is going to be focused on making sure that our labor-oriented industries where IT is, of course, there, that's what we get at the bargaining counter table. So I think it now shows the path that the government is going to follow with any other country, whether European Union or the US, that employment-oriented services like IT and tech are going to be the ones where we will try and extract advantages while we'll give it up on the high-end stuff like liquor and high-end automobiles, on high-end defense and all of those kind of things. So clearly the demarcation is that the richer products is what we'll let come in, but the more labor-oriented products is where we want them to take Indian services without a tariff. So I think clearly the dividing line is very, very clear. And IT clearly falls in that bracket of being the most labor-intensive. And it's also a key USP for India, not only for the technological skills that we have, but also the knowledge of the English language.
Absolutely, Mr. Subramaniam. So India has several opportunities to make the most of, this FTA with respect to skilling, like you said, and of course the skills that Indian IT professionals pursue, as you stated. And I'm just going to rephrase that. It's not only going to benefit the UK, but India has a larger opportunity to serve the European Union as well. Well, on that note, thank you very much for taking the time out and speaking with us right here on ET Now. Ladies and gentlemen, time for us to slip into a very short break. But after the break, well, private equity and venture capital have rebounded in India in 2024, and that's according to a report that's been published by Bain. We get you the findings of that report, that and much more coming up after this short break. Don't go anywhere.